Hi guys, how's it going? This is Adam here with Adam L Photography, and today we're looking at the Ursa Mini 4K. Now, if you've just tuned in, most likely what you're doing is you're looking at different camera options and trying to figure out which one's going to work best for your budget. That's where the 4K really comes in, say over the 4.6K or the Ursa large version, the Ursa Major. The Mini 4K starts to fit right into that sort of smaller, easier to handle budget range that a lot of us are dealing with at the moment. Now, just a little background on some of the stuff I've done with this. I've taken this camera now everywhere from in the rainforests of Okinawa, which is a subtropical environment, all the way through to the Japanese Alps, where I was shooting a ski school video really high up in the mountains, heavy snow. So this is a cinema camera. It's designed for cinematic use. So when I say cinematic, I mean basically either controlled, planned shots or, things that you're going to wait for to capture the right moment. For example, I use it a lot for nature filming because I can get into a situation and I can wait for the shot, I can wait for the light, I can get everything set up and have it exactly as I want it and then capture the moment. And that's where this camera really shines, is when you're prepared, when you've got the situation the way you want it, when you've worked out all your lighting and your angles and you've got everything worked out, you've blocked out your shots, then this camera set up right, lit properly, is phenomenal. It's amazing. All right, let's talk a little bit about dynamic range. Now, the BlackMagic Ursa Mini 4K comes with 12 stops of dynamic range. Now, if you're not sure what dynamic range is, it's just the ability to, for the sensor to capture both the highlights and the shadows and still maintain detail in both, so that when you put it into post and you start grading your footage, you have the ability to still bring out details in both those highlights and shadows to a greater extent. Okay, let's talk codecs. This is one of the things that really got me excited about this camera, was the codecs. I use Apple computers. That's my systems that I run. I run everything off Apple, and being able to shoot in Apple's ProRes is a major time saver when it comes to transcoding for me. So that's one of the things I really love about this camera, is that it does have a whole variety of different kinds of ProRes codecs built in. So it allows you to not only capture that dynamic range that the camera sensor is capable of, but also to maintain so much information from each frame that you're really able to extend your editing capabilities by quite a large variance compared to what you would do with, say, like I said before, a DSLR. The other thing that's great about this now is it has the ability to shoot RAW. Now, RAW is amazing. RAW, for anyone that's coming from a photography background, you know what RAW is. For those of you who aren't experienced with like RAW and the idea of RAW, basically it's capturing the information straight from the sensor, straight to the media card. So there's no compression getting put on by the internal computing of the camera itself. It's just straight sensor to memory card, and that basically just gives you a little bit more information than you would get, stuff that is actually lost in the codec process. So even ProRes still compresses your information a little bit. It chooses what parts to leave out and what parts to keep in. Whereas when you shoot RAW, you just get the whole lot and you get to choose what you want to keep and what you want to throw away later. The downside is, of course, it churns through an incredible amount of data. So you're going to run out of memory cards very quickly, especially if you start going up to the 60 frames per second 4K RAW capability of this camera. Now, while we're talking about the codecs, one thing that really drives me up the wall about this camera, something I really don't like about this camera, is when you change your codec, say mid-shoot. So you've got your cards in there, you wanted to capture a certain scene, it was very important, so you shot it in like higher frame rates or in RAW, and you got that scene, and then you want to switch back to shooting in like a lower frame rate in ProRes, for example, but you don't want to go and copy off your data mid-shot because you're in the middle of it. When you do go back like that, you're unable to play back the previous shot. So when you set your camera into the ProRes version, you can't just hit play, go back and check a couple of the RAW shots that you shot earlier. They're not there. So just for referencing, sometimes when you're on location, you just want to do a quick reference for maybe angles or all sorts of stuff that you want to reference. You don't get that ability to do it using this camera, and that really pisses me off, to tell the truth. But it is what it is, and everything will have its drawbacks. That's just one of the ones that really drives me nuts about this. Another thing that really kind of drives me a bit nuts about this camera is there's no HDMI out. It's all SDI out, which is great. That's industry standard. That's a professional level thinking. But this camera was sold at a cheaper rate to appeal to people who aren't working at the top end of the industry, people who are on more of a shoestring budget, And in general, if you're like me, a lot of your monitors and external monitors that you might use, or an extra recorder for backups, etc., will run with an HDMI cable, not an SDI cable. So now you're left with needing to go and get an adapter or upgrade to a different kind of monitor. It just seems a little bit frustrating that they couldn't have just included a single HDMI out, so that you would have been able to monitor using your existing equipment without having to think about modifications. Okay, so let's talk audio with this camera. All right, so you do have a mic built in here on the front. It's good for scratch audio. I wouldn't use it if you're doing production, you wanted to capture like the full-on audio. That's not really what you want to use it for. But what you do want to do then is get one of your booms or your XLR microphones and plug them right here in your twin XLR ports that come in the back. And as far as like monitoring your audio goes, you've got a headphone jack here in the back, so you can keep a set of headphones on and have a good listen to what's going on. Make sure that the audio is what you want, because there's nothing worse than finishing a shot and realizing that your audio blew. So when you buy the Ursa itself, you don't get a battery. In fact, you don't get a power supply. And this is kind of a little bit, it's not a little bit, it's very frustrating. The camera itself doesn't come with a full power supply. What you get is a connector for your 12-pin, sorry, not your 12-pin, for your 4-pin XLR power supply. You get the connector that plugs into there and goes to a box, but then from the box, you don't have an outlet cable, one that goes to the wall. So you've got to go out and purchase one of those or use one of your other ones to just power on your camera. Now, if you just bought the thing and you just want to use it in a studio, you don't want to go out and buy batteries and stuff like that. It'd be nice to pull it out of the box and be able to plug it in. Just saying. To power it by battery, you're going to need to get yourself a V-mount battery or a gold mount battery and a battery plate. This is the one from BlackMagic themselves. I've got these IDX Edura Duos. Now, I use the Duo 95s because they're as big as you can get on an airplane before you start breaking the rules. So that's the ones I use. I've got a couple of those at all times to keep with me. They charge the camera and run it for quite a few hours. So never had a problem. Basically, you're looking at say 4 to 5 hours shooting time with these two batteries. And that's shooting at pretty good frame rates as well. So yeah, little things you're gonna need as well. Like top handle, for example, that doesn't come with the camera. You do get this little side handle that you can mount on the side of the camera. And that will also fit onto, say, your tripods, like the Manfrotto I have. You can sit that on the side so you don't have to bang the camera as much when you're recording. And that comes with just a couple of silly little controls, like having your iris and your focus. Record button's useful, but iris and focus, not so much. Prefer to shoot all that stuff manual myself. But if you want to shoot with your auto functions on your EF glass or PL glass, whatever, if you've got that, then those buttons are there. But they're not programmable, so you can't do anything with them. So for me, they just sit there and do absolutely nothing but collect dust or give me something to thumb around with while I'm shooting. Other controls that you get are on the side of the camera. So you've got all these little guys here. You do have a function 1, function 2. These are programmable, which is quite nice. I have those set up for one for showing me a LUT so that I can see what the film is going to look like when it's a bit more graded. And the other one I have set up for false color. Again, you've got your iris and focus, which I'm not going to use. You got your record, you play back and forward. If you open the camera up, you've got a few more controls. You've got your power on, your menu button, program button, peak for your focus, a focus and iris button again. So now we've got focus and iris in 3 places that we don't need to use. Record button, play, back, forward, and these little knobs here for adjusting your audio. However, with the latest firmware, you can adjust all that on screen. It's a full touch screen that goes in there. And right here is where you put your 2 CF fast cards, which is your media. So that is pretty much everything that's on there. You've got your SDI outs, SDI in, your time code in, and 12 volt out, and an SDI out. And that is everything that comes with the camera. There's no weather sealing really on the camera. I mean, there's air vents on the top. You can actually see things moving around, fans moving around inside the camera. So always make sure if you're going to be out in the field that you do have some good quality rain protection for the camera, because you never know when you're going to need it. It's top and bottom, by the way, guys. So things can get sucked up, water and moisture can get sucked up into the camera, or it can fall down through the top of the camera here. It's not weather sealed, so be prepared. All right, so ergonomics. Okay. It's so customizable that you can really play around with it. And that gives you a chance to find the type of shooting style that you want. So for example, you have this handle on the side here, okay? And if you have that locked in, a lot of times when I'm shooting, if I'm handhold shooting, I'll do a cradle so I can sort of work the focus of my lens, same time as hit my record button, and then press the camera into my body to create a more stable environment while I'm shooting. And in that sense, having the handle here is quite good. When you try to extend your arm out, you're really holding quite a lot of weight out on just this tiny little handle, and it feels a little bit dodgy when it comes to that. Now they do have a shoulder mount system, which I do have. I have bought because essentially I wanted the top handle, and I did want to have the shoulder mount system for in the future. However, that shoulder mount system is only useful if you buy the Viewfinder, because when you have it on your shoulder like so, you have a handle down here somewhere. If you try to look through the screen, you'll find yourself in this position. And well, if your eyes are good, you'd probably be able to pull it off. And I have done it for a couple of jobs where I needed to shoulder mount the camera and just twist the screen down a little bit like that. As long as you're indoors and not getting too much reflection, you can pull it off. But essentially the $1,500 Viewfinder that comes and connects here is what you need. Now I don't have that. It is on the list, but it's not at the top of the list. It's not really a priority at the moment. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the menu system. Compared to a lot of cameras out there, especially things like Sony, the memory layout and operation of this camera is phenomenal. So everything is touch screen. I know you're not really going to be able to see it from that angle there, but everything comes in touch screen. So you have the simplest setups. So you can go from your record, next would be your monitor, audio, basic setups, presets, and LUTs. It gives you those basic systems which you can just touch the shift between, and then inside each menu is a sub-menu that is done by hitting a side arrow or a swipe. As part of a workflow is that when you're on the fly, when you're shooting a production, you're out on location or whatever it is you're doing, you don't have to fiddle around too long to change your settings. So when you've decided to go from shooting at 60 frames per second and want to drop that down to 24 for the next shot, it's really just a couple of clicks away. There's no menu system to dive through. When you want to switch it into shooting windowed high frame rates up to 120 frames a second in HD, it's 2 clicks away. It's so simple to set this camera up to change things on the fly that it's ridiculous. And now you've even got things like your white balance and the tinting and the white balance, all that one touch of the screen and you're in that menu. Do I like this camera? No, I love this camera. For my workflow, this camera fits in perfectly. It does everything I need it to do the way I need it done. And for the things it doesn't do, I have other cameras that will cover that. So for me, as far as a cinema production camera that can shoot 4K, for shooting sports, for shooting outdoors, for shooting music videos, and anything up to like serious like film productions, this camera is fantastic for my workflow. When looking to buy a camera like this, just make sure it is what you need, like it is going to fall into your workflow. So make sure that if you're looking to do run and gun kind of style photography and you want something that's going to be able to do lots of automatic functions so you don't have to think when you're on the fly, then this is probably not the camera for you. You're probably better off looking at something like the FS5, FS7 range by Sony. But for cinema productions and all that kind of stuff, and for like planned out shots or stuff where you've got time to really think it through and get it right the way you want it, and you want something that's impactful and cinematic and beautiful, beautiful camera for that. So customizable, so user-friendly, so many beautiful settings and useful things built into it that it makes it, for the price range, unbeatable in my opinion. That's just my opinion. Now, if you've liked this video, please hit the subscribe button. We have a whole bunch of productions coming up soon that we're gonna do some behind the scenes, some tips and tutorials, and also just show you some pretty cool stuff. So definitely hit that subscribe button. Throw us a like if you did like the video. And of course, if you have a question, drop it in the comments below. This is Adam L. Happy shooting.